All right, we're back with a nosebleed perspective with our top 10 wide receiver fantasy rankings in the PPR format. Uh, like we said before in the past couple episodes, the wide receiver position is the most valuable position in the fantasy game because it's the deepest position in the fantasy game. So I'm going to go ahead and start us off with the top 10. Number 10 in my eyes, Mike Evans is who I have here. Look, the addition with Gronk, Chris Godwin, coming into his own last year. Tom Brady being a guy who's not going to just throw the ball like crazy, like Jameis Winston, and just throw it up to his big receiver and get those long catches for yards. I don't believe he repeats with the season that he had last year in the past couple of years with the offensive tools that the Bucs do have on that team. So that's the reason I see him falling a little bit, but not a lot. I mean, he only played 13 games last year, and he finished number 15 in the league in fantasy points. So obviously, if he were to play the full 16 games, he probably ends up in the top 10, I would imagine, in that offense. But that's why I have him here at 10.
So he's going in the third round, very first pick of the third round. So
really
average where he's going right now.
Okay.
So at number 10, I've got a guy I'm more comfortable with in the LA Rams offense. Robert Woods had an up and down year just like Kupp did. You just never know what you're going to get with this guy because McVay is always trying to, exploit matchups and everything. The reason I have Woods is because I believe he'll be more consistent. He might not get the touchdowns that Kupp will, but I think the yardage and the receptions will be there. To me, he's a safer option. McVay does everything he can to get him open. This man goes in motion almost more than anyone else in the NFL. So he's always trying to get this guy, whether it be in the slot or he likes a corner that only plays zone. He always is trying to get Robert Woods open. He's not going to get the touchdowns, but he'll be more consistent.
Yeah, that was why I had Robert Woods way up to the list. Don't believe in him. But I'm going to talk about a guy that you guys already talked about too, old Odell Beckham Jr. I think Logs had him at 16, Gibby had him at 17. Obviously, the Browns offense is absolutely stacked, just yoked, absolutely stout offense. Odell is going to be fighting for those receptions, but at the end of the day, I think that Odell is going to be the guy that gets the most touchdown receptions and the most end zone looks. And he's the dude that can go up. Obviously, Jarvis Landry, absolute monster of a wide receiver, probably the best WR2 in the NFL. But Odell is just going to overshadow him heavily, and Odell's going to have an uptick in receptions, an uptick in touchdowns, and just an uptick in overall just output this season. Number 10, Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, the dude is, I'd say, like I said before, top 3 most talented wide receiver in the league, probably. But that situation just fucks him. So,
yeah.
All right. So, number 9, this is where I put Robert Woods. I'm a big believer in this guy. I think he's the most underrated all around. Take fantasy out of the equation. The most underrated all around football player in the whole National Football League. I love this. The way he plays, he blocks great. He runs the routes that you want to run. He's always there. He's a security blanket for Jared Goff. Jared Goff loves throwing to this guy. He averaged over 20.5 points per game and 12 targets over the last 5 games of the season last year. Whenever Brandon Cooks was out in 2019, which was a lot of games, this dude produced, man. He was the guy. Like, Cooper Kupp gets a lot of love, and he will, obviously, we'll find out sooner in this episode. Cooper Kupp is probably Jared Goff's number 1 guy. But Robert Woods, old Bob Woods, is like, he is so explosive too. It's like, it's hard to place him because you don't, when he was in Buffalo, he probably wasn't like a guy on your radar at all. But I think he is due for a season that he's explosive, Jared Goff loves him. He finally is going to get his time to shine, and he's not even probably one of the number one receivers on that team that people are going to be paying attention to. So look out for Robert Woods to break out. And look, I'm not saying like go for him in the first round, second round of the draft, but if he falls to you round 3 or 4, I don't know his average draft position, Gibby, but if he can fall in those middle rounds, please take Robert Woods, because he is going to be a guy who's going to be super consistent as long as he's healthy, which I think he will be. He's always been healthy. Look for him. I love him as a top 10 wide receiver in fantasy rankings next year.
Consistent if Goff isn't blind.
Yo.
Yeah, so he's going late in the 4th, and that's kind of what we talked about in one of our previous episodes, just about the name. Everyone knows Mike Evans, what he did, how he got a cokehead drafted in the first round of the NFL, everything he was able to do. Robert Woods, you can steal. You can get a couple good running backs. You can get another good wide receiver. He could be your wide receiver too, and, we believe that he's a wide receiver 1. So just kind of the thing, know your league, know everything else, and I'm going to go with another guy who got an upgrade in the quarterback position this year. Carolina's wide receiver and DJ Moore. He had 135 targets, almost 1,200 yards, but he only had 4 touchdowns and a terrible offense. He's great. He's absolutely great at yards after catch. And with a check down quarterback like Teddy, it just fits him awesome. He's still going to get that volume, and he's going to be able to make plays after catch. I absolutely love DJ Moore. He's going in the 4th round too, so obviously I have him one position higher than Robert Woods just because, you never know with McVay. That's the difference for me for one spot. But either way, if I can get either one of these guys in the 4th round, I will be stoked.
For sure. Like these 2 dudes, if DJ Moore or Robert Woods, if you can get them as your wide receiver 2, you're in a good spot going forward in your draft for sure. Like I'm telling you, like as a Rams fan who's watched this, Robert Woods is a guy. I'm telling you, he's going to be the guy who's going to win your league. DJ Moore is another dude with a better offense this year who's probably going to, help you out a lot. Sorry, Cheech.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, you're entirely right. I had DJ Moore on one of my teams last year. He was a solid pick. I did have DJ Moore at 12, so you're not bidding him too far forward from where I had him. But at number 9 for me, I had Amari Cooper. I know he is on a heavily stout wide receiver team. And Michael Gallup put up some serious numbers last year. I know CeeDee Lamb is expected to do great things. But Amari Cooper has so much talent and so much ability that I think is like a little overlooked. And I mean, this man can get up, he can catch damn near anything that's thrown his way. And Dak Prescott may not be the best quarterback in the NFL, may not be a top 10. He's probably a top 14. I'm going to say top 14. Dak Prescott's in the top 14 in the NFL. But Amari Cooper can catch anything thrown within 18 inches of his vicinity.
Chris Collinsworth on Sunday Night Football last year, he was like, here's a guy who caught a ball 3 yards out of bounds. I'm like, Chris, that's 9 feet. Did he really catch? Granted, 3 yards doesn't sound – sorry, but go ahead. But
I just think Amari Cooper just has extreme range and extreme ability to reach for things that are coming his way. And I think that he needs that with the quarterback that he has. I think Amari Cooper, even though the Cowboys are built as a stout wide receiver football team, Amari Cooper is still heavily the number 1 wide receiver, but will be more open this season because of the other weapons that they have on that offense. So Amari Cooper, number 9.
Okay. All right. So to number 8, I have Chris Godwin here. Look, a dude, he finished 2nd overall in wide receiver fantasy points last year. I just don't see that happening again. That's why I have both these Bucs receivers kind of a little lower than they were last year, or like overall averaged or whatever. It's just not going to happen again with Brady. But he is still a guy you want on your team. He's proven himself. I just don't I don't look at Tom Brady and say, all right, this is a guy who's going to hit Chris Godwin, because Chris Godwin, he did not have a lot of targets last year. So the number one receiver in targets last year, obviously Michael Thomas, 149 targets. The number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 receivers in the league when it comes to targets had more targets than Chris Godwin. So take that for what you will, but he's not going to get as many looks with Tom Brady as his quarterback. So that's why I have him falling off a little bit. I do think he's a great receiver. I think he's going to do good for the Bucs this year, but I don't see him being a top 5 receiver in the league. That's why I haven't fallen down to the number 8 spot. He's probably going to go pretty high in your leagues. I don't know, Gibby, maybe you can give us some insight on where he's going, but I'm not taking –
Late second.
So it just
You
depends.
have to have the early pick, so you
Yeah.
have to get that'd have to be your second pick, because you would have the first pick in the draft or one of the first 3 picks, and then your number 1 wide receiver would have to be Chris Godwin.
I still don't think I would take him at that point.
No.
Just
I
me
wouldn't.
personally, but I have to put him up here just because he has produced. He's he's going to be a good guy in Tampa Bay.
Especially too, considering if I have the late pick in the second, it means I have an early pick in the third. I'd rather take him in the third than take him late in the second. Even
Yeah,
though it's
he's
only
another
it's like a 4 pick disparage right there, but I would still rather him in the third than the second. I just feel like,
And he's a big name that's came up over the past year. So
Exactly.
people are going to
Yeah.
reach for him a little bit. I'm just saying, I feel like you can get better fantasy value at the position you would take him at than what he will produce in 2020, in my opinion. So
It's crazy how different 1 year can make. So I got him in like the 7th round last year, and it was a great, it ended up paying off for me, but not in our league, of course, because I just suck in our league. But anyway,
he
I'm
did
gonna
suck.
go-
He sucked real bad.
Yeah, it was the worst.
I finished 7th. But anyway, Allen Robinson, I got a number 8 for the Bears. He had 154 targets, and his quarterback play can only be better. It can only be better this year. I had the Bears winning the North in our earlier episodes, and Allen Robinson is one of those reasons. I'm a big Allen Robinson believer. I think he's a really good wide receiver. I know, a lot of people don't think so, but, I do believe in his talents. He's going in the late 3rd round. So that would be tough. It would be tough. But like I said, know your league, know if people know about this guy, and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I had Allen Robinson at 11. He's right in that range where you're like, you don't want to reach for him too much, but at the
But
same
if he
time,
falls,
he's going to be consistent.
Yeah.
So
So this is the second time now in the past 10 at least that Logs and I are on the same page. I got Chris Godwin here too. Chris Godwin was just one of those dudes last year that every single week I'd go into it like, he wasn't on my team. He was on either of my fantasy leagues, but he was one of those guys that I passed over when drafting. So I was like, oh, like he's the WR2, like Mike Evans is ahead of him. They got OJ Howard. Like this team's solid.
Yep.
And then Chris Godwin was just blowing up, just flying past cornerbacks. And towards the end of the season, I was like, okay, like when is Chris Godwin going to stop scoring touchdowns? So I got Chris Godwin at number 8. Like I said, the way that he's being drafted right now is a little rich for my blood, but at the end of the day, too, it's just whatever happens in fantasy. I just don't know if like Tom Brady's not going to be slinging the ball like Jameis Winston was. So I see Chris Godwin's draft capital going down this season just for that simple fact.
yeah, no
Tom Brady
regrets.
doesn't have those 20-plus yard throws where, Jameis Winston's literally he's blind and then he's covering his eyes and just throwing it anyway. And Tom Brady doesn't do that. So
I mean,
Chris
the guy
Godwin's gonna drop a little bit.
just got eye surgery. Give him a break. All right.
Yeah. He's stealing crab legs too. All right. Who do we got next?
All right. So number 7 here. I have a guy who I auto drafted last year because I was in a casino in Canada and I lost internet connection. I drafted this guy on accident.
And you hated him.
pissed.
And I was
Pissed.
so pissed. So
hated
pissed.
him.
I think I got him in the 4th round too. turns out Kenny Galladay
Beast.
is the guy you want on your team. Look, we talked about Marvin Jones early in this. I think it was last episode. I think Gibby talked about him a lot. All Kenny Galladay did on a team where that quarterback play has the potential to be so good, but last year was not so good. All Kenny Galladay did was lead the league in reception touchdowns. He had 11 touchdowns last year, 1,190 yards. And this dude he's a playmaker, man. Like, he's a guy that Matt Stafford trusts. I mean, no disrespect to Marvin Jones, but Kenny Galladay is his guy over Marvin Jones, especially going forward. Marvin Jones is getting older, blah, blah, blah. But I like the yardage. I like the receptions. I like the targets that Kenny Galladay gets over Marvin Jones. If Matt Stafford can stay healthy, look out for Kenny Galladay to be a guy who you can probably, I don't know, steal if it's good, but people aren't going to look. Yeah.
Yep.
People
Early
aren't.
third.
People
First,
aren't going to
second,
look to
third.
take Kenny Galladay in the first or second round, but he's a guy who was an absolute monster last year, fantasy-wise, when Matt Stafford was in, and David Blau came in. Do you guys know who David Blau is? David
Never heard of
Blau.
him.
No, he still led the league in reception touchdowns. And we talked about Marvin Jones, but so that's who I like here. Big fan of Kenny Galladay after last year. So, we'll see. He averaged 15.4 points a game last year, which is pretty solid for a wide receiver one if you want to go forward in your draft. So look out for that. I think he can be productive, and I'm sure maybe one of these guys will talk about him in a minute.
Yeah, so I'm not going to elaborate on Chris Godwin. I got him one spot higher than you guys. I wish I would have had him at 8th, so maybe we would all have one guy in the same spot. But like Cheech brought up, Tom Brady's arm. When's the last time Tom Brady had a speedster in his offense? So it's not kind of his thing. I don't know how well that old arm can go for Godwin's talent. It's big risk, big reward for Chris Godwin, especially where he's going. So be careful. Please don't reach for him, but I think he probably does finish as a wide receiver top 10. Maybe they switch it. Instead of running deep routes, he just runs a lot of drag. So that's kind of my hope for Chris Godwin.
Yeah, so this is actually the only team that I have this going on for, and I mean, that's pretty wild that I have two Tampa Bay wide receivers back to back. I've got Mike Evans here now. So these two wide receivers are practically interchangeable, especially when Mike Evans, what did he tear his ACL last season? It was one of his knee ligaments was just absolutely blown up, and Chris Godwin just seamlessly took over that WR1 position on that team. So while Mike Evans can get up, and he's just a gigantic target who can get up and win that ball against the cornerback, Chris Godwin is just as good. So it's hard to really separate these two, especially when I'm fairly certain at multiple points during the fantasy season last year, these two were practically back-to-back with each other. Their points production was, I would have to say, without even looking at anything, I would have to say they were within 20 points of point production last season in the PPR.
So real quick, overall, Chris Godwin finished number 2 overall in fantasy points productions. He only played 14 games last year. So, I mean,
it's a big deal.
Receivers like Julio Jones, Cooper Kupp, DeAndre Hopkins, those guys were less productive fantasy-wise. And obviously, I'm not gonna put Chris Godwin above Julio Jones and the best receiver in the league. But when you're talking about fantasy, you have to look at these things. So that's
I mean, that's a solid point. I mean, and that's why these two wide receivers are back to back, because Tampa Bay has the ability to. Mike Evans goes down, Chris Godwin moves up, and it's a seamless transaction. But I don't see Mike Evans as being worth too much more than Chris Godwin is after what he proved to be last year.
All right, so we're on to number 6, eh?
Hey.
Oof. All right, so number 6 here is where I put my boy Cooper Cup. Look,
Wow.
I love Cooper Cup going into next year, and I don't even know where he's going in mock drafts. Gibby's probably about to look that up. He's 4th round.
Middle of the fourth.
He's a slot receiver.
All right, listen to me, boys. Boys. Cooper
He's
Kupp
a slot receiver.
Is a gem who is a slot receiver for sure. But he has earned the trust in that LA Rams organization. He's earned the trust in Jared Goff. Jared Goff looks for this guy. Where did he finish last year in overall points for wide receiver position? He finished number 4 last year. He was an absolute monster. Did he have huge games that probably boosted that? Yes, he did. He did. He did. But I look for him. That's why I put 2 Rams receivers in the top 10. I look for Jared Goff. Look, Sean McVay is a pass-oriented mind. I don't care how many times I run the ball. I don't care if Todd Gurley's in the backfield. I don't care if
He
Cam
took his
Akers.
headphone out.
Yeah, I don't care, man. This dude is gonna be a guy who's gonna get you fantasy points. I'm speaking strictly from a fantasy perspective here. Jared Goff loves to look for this guy. If you want points per reception, do I take him top 10 in a standard league? Absolutely not. If you're in a standard league, do not take Cooper Kupp in the top 10 wide receiver range. But PPR, you have to look for him. And I try to put this out there, not for before your drafts in your fantasy leagues, but at the season, when the season ends, I think Cooper Kupp will be the number 6 or better wide receiver in the league. This dude, I mean, he had over 1,000 yards. He had 10 touchdowns last year, which is second in the league, second behind Kenny Galladay. So look out for that. Love Cooper Kupp this year without Brandon Cooks. Pay attention. You heard it here first.
My big concern is that he finished outside. So from weeks 6 through 12, that's 7 weeks, 5 times he finished outside the top wide receiver 40. That means even if you had 3 wide receivers, if you had to start 3 wide receivers on your team, he still is not a starter for 5 of 7 weeks in the season.
Yeah, and I get it.
It's just that heart attack of knowing if you're going to get 2 points or 37 is a big risk.
I think he just gets better this year. I think his receptions gets better. I think he's
a flex.
Yeah, he's a great
He's
flex.
a flex no matter what. Like
I think
starting.
So Gibby said he's taken at the 4th round, late 4th round, or whatever.
Yep.
I think the value you can get him for is so much better at the end of the season at 2020 when you're looking at your fantasy rankings for the next season or whatever it is. I think you're going to see him in the top 5. That's just my opinion. I'm not saying reach for him in the first 2 rounds because he's not going to be taken. So wait, get a running back, get a good receiver, who get a WR1. But at the end of the year, Cooper Kupp is going to make you your money. I'm telling you.
Okay.
Them tight ends are just too good for me, but
Yeah.
I got you. At number 6, I got a guy who I would love to have as my wide receiver 1 because the risk level is almost none. He's going to put up points, maybe not the top end points, but he could still put up the top end points. I got Kenny Galladay out of Detroit. He finished wide receiver 6 last year with a couple of backup quarterbacks. If Stafford's throwing in the ball, this dude's going to blow up.
Yeah,
Low risk, high ceiling. That's a perfect wide receiver 1. He's going to the 3rd round. Get you 2 running backs. Get you Kenny Galladay. Everyone's going to laugh at you, and then you laugh at them whenever you hold the belt.
Yeah, I remember where I was when Logs drafted Kenny Galladay and freaked the
Pissed.
out.
He thought his season was over.
I remember.
Exactly, yeah.
I wanted to
He
kill
was ready-
myself in Toronto Casino. I know.
Yeah, he was throwing the hat and he was done. And then this man absolutely blew up, and that's why I have Kenny Galladay at number 6 also. I mean, like, this man was an absolute stud for the Detroit Lions, and Matthew Stafford is a gunslinger, and he's going to continue to be. And we learned a lot about Kenny Galladay last season, and we learned that he is a wide receiver that is a real deal. I mean, this is a team that went from Megatron to nothing to a guy that can. I mean, obviously he's young in his career and he hasn't proven himself to that degree yet, but Kenny Galladay can be the Megatron of the Detroit Lions going forward. This man catches everything. He gets open. He scores touchdowns. He does it all. Kenny Galladay, number 6.
Yeah, I know. I'm a big Galladay fan this year. I mean, like Gibby put Marvin Jones in the top 30 or whatever, top 20 maybe. And we talked about his touchdowns, and I was like, look, yeah, but who's the guy who led the fucking league in touchdowns last year?
Yeah.
Kenny Galladay. And with some terrible quarterback. I mean, David fucking Blau. I mean, so
you got so lucky auto drafting him.
Yeah, I did. Look, I know. I was so pissed too. But so look out for him in your I don't know where just second, third round or whatever. Third.
I feel like I mean at this point too, like we're getting to the dudes that we'd probably take in the second round.
Yeah, I mean, just look for him, man.
Next pick, second round.
Oh. All right. So, number 5, we're into our top 5 wide receiver rankings for the 2020 fantasy drafts that will come. Number 5 is where I put Tyreek Hill. All right, look, this dude, I love him. I think he's probably the biggest X factor in the NFL. I think no one does more for their team but Tyreek Hill. If Tyreek Hill plays on a different team, is Patrick Mahomes a $500 million quarterback? I'm not exactly sure, but maybe he is. I'm not saying that, Gibby, but Tyreek Hill is an absolute monster. I love Tyreek Hill, but I can't put him in my top 3 PPR standard. If it's a standard league, I definitely put him top 3 for sure. But he finished. He was kind of injured last year. He finished number 32 overall, fantasy point wise overall. But that's because he only played 12 games. So look for this dude to. I mean, he's predicted 7 Super Bowl wins coming up. So he's in the game. He's here. He's here to win. And I like him to go as my wide receiver 1 for sure. I'm okay if I get a late round, first round pick, and I get Tyreek Hill. So
yeah, his ADP is 11th right now, first round. So
yeah.
All right. So at number 5, I'm going to go for a guy who swapped teams this year. He got traded for a scrub and a draft pick or some shit. I'm going with DeAndre Hopkins at 5 for the Arizona Cardinals.
What?
In his 7-year career, he's averaged 1,200 yards. The boys are pissed. He had 150 targets last year, which was the lowest of his 5-year season. So he finished wide receiver 5 last year. He's been 5. He's had top 5 finishes in 4 of the last 5 years. But the main question is, will Kyler and Cliff make him better or worse than Deshaun Watson? That's the big question for me. We've talked about it. I think it was our very first episode ever. I'm not a big Cliff Kingsbury fan. I don't know if he can get DeAndre Hopkins to where he needs to be.
So you think he's worse than last year or better?
I think he's probably worse.
Bleh.
Okay. The disrespect. All right. So going forward, this is number 5, Devontae Adams, Green Bay Packers. This is a solid wide receiver, and obviously, he's proven himself. The only problem is we just witnessed another year where the Green Bay Packers did not draft a skill player position, did not assist. The wide receiver core did not assist Devontae Adams with getting open. So once again, it's going to be Devontae Adams and Alan Lazard and the dude with 3 names, and everybody's going to be covering Devontae Adams because he's the only real guy on that offense. And it makes it difficult, but at the same time, Devontae Adams proves himself year after year after year as a top wide receiver in the league. He's Aaron Rodgers' favorite target, especially in the end zone. Devontae Adams, number 5, Green Bay Packers.
Oh man, yeah. Thanks for throwing me the lob here. I do have Devonte Adams as the number 4 receiver in the NFL fantasy PPR rankings next year. Like, I mean, he played 12 games last year, but he still averaged, almost 18 points per game. He's Rodgers, and everyone knows it. They didn't draft anyone. It's Aaron's
Yeah.
guy. So the dude, when he's in the game, he produces. So if he's healthy, if that offense seems to work with maybe that new running back that they drafted, I don't know, draw some attention. But I do.
Jordan Love's going to come in.
Oh,
already?
I don't know about that,
No,
but
he won't. He won't.
if he can stay healthy, take him as your WR1. If you have the picks, 5 through 10, look for Devonte Adams. So big Adams guy. He just needs his opportunities. He needs his time on the field, and he will produce for your team.
Yeah, so at number 4, I got a big risk, big reward in Tyreek Hill, Kansas City Chiefs. But there are 5 reasons why Tyreek could be the top wide receiver in the league this year. Number 1, he did it 2 years ago. He's done it. He's been the top wide receiver in the league in fantasy. 2, teams cannot key on him. They cannot put their fastest corner on Tyreek and then just – they can't. Patrick Mahomes will literally destroy you if you double team. We saw it in the playoffs last year. Number 3, he's got Patrick Mahomes, the $500 million man, as his quarterback. He's the fastest player in the league. I hope he doesn't keep racing people because his confidence will go down so bad if someone beats him. So stop racing T.O. At number 5, he's primed at the age of 26, and his route running keeps getting better every year. He used to just be a straight burner. He's getting better at out routes, getting better at digs, stuff like that. So the high upside to me is worth the games that you're only going to get 5 points out of him, because there's going to be some games where you only get 2 catches, 30 yards. It's just going to happen. It's just how the Chiefs offense is. So whenever you build your team, you got to be more conservative if you take him in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like that's a threat that you have with any WR1 on teams is you're gonna have those weeks where you go 2 catches 30 yards, 3 catches 20 yards, some nonsense like that. But number 4, I have Tyreek Hill as well. I mean, this guy has so much capital and so much that he's proven that he can do that you'd be absolutely crazy to pass him up. If you have an early first round pick and then a late second round pick, I'd probably take Tyreek in the late second, just because. I mean, I'm not going to pass up on that.
No,
because the dude has produced. He will produce. He is the WR1. He is the fastest receiver in the NFL.
yeah, like I said, I think he's the biggest X factor in the whole NFL. He allows the Chiefs to do what they want to do. He's the guy who is that focal point. But the sole point, that he is that guy is the only reason I kept him out of top 4, area. But if you can get him in the second round, you should get him. Anyway, all right. So we're on to number 3 now. Top 3, eh?
Let's go.
All right. So here's where I have Julio Jones. I love Julio. I think Julio Jones is probably the most talented receiver in the whole NFL football league. I love Julio, but the sole fact that Calvin Ridley is on the other side and he's going to take all his touchdowns, I think you should beware of taking him your first receiver if you have that option to take the other 2 guys before him, who I will mention, take them before. But Julio is the man. This dude has been nothing but consistent throughout the years. He played 15 games last year. He had less than 100 receptions last year, and he had almost 1,400 yards. So, what does that say? This dude, I mean, he is the dude. And like I mentioned about Calvin Ridley, he does take a lot of his touchdowns. Julio only had 6 touchdowns last year, but it almost doesn't even matter because he's so productive. Whenever the Matt Ryan and the Falcons have the ball driving down the field, he's the guy who seems to be always open. And I don't even know how, because, obviously teams will focus on Julio Jones. He's such a great route runner that you have to consider him in your top 5-6 picks. So
I will also go with the best wide receiver in the league, but fantasy-wise, I got him at 3. His worst season, which you would love if you drafted and got, he had 1,394 yards. Like, tell me if you were guaranteed that, you wouldn't take it. You would take it every year and twice in 2020 because nothing has gone right. He's a lock for a wide receiver top 5. Take Julio if he's available.
Yeah, no. At number 3, I'm also going to take the real number 11 at Julio Jones and not Robbie Anderson. It doesn't get much better than Julio Jones. It doesn't get much more proven than Julio Jones. And Matt Ryan at quarterback is, he's up there in age and everybody questions him. He's solid. And now this year they don't have Austin Hooper, who's going to – he was a major end zone threat. He saved me in a lot of fantasy games last year.
Yep.
So you take Austin Hooper off that team, that means Julio has to do that much more work. Julio Jones, number 3.
Jeez. Okay. All right. Top 2. Number 2, DeAndre Hopkins is who I have here. A dude who just I don't feel like I have to explain this guy's talent to anyone. He's a monster. He played 15 games last year. He got over 100 targets, and I feel like the situation he's in with Kyler Murray and Larry Fitzgerald taking a lot of attention, Christian Kirk on the other side, it's a better receiving core. I know Will Fuller's great, but I think it's a better receiving core and somebody who's, desperate to get the ball downfield with Kyler Murray. So I look for Kyler to look for DeAndre a lot this season. So they don't have that security blanket at running back anymore like David Johnson. So who's going to be that guy just like he was that guy in Houston? That's why I can't put him outside of this top 2. I just love DeAndre Hopkins going forward. I don't know if he actually finishes in the top 2 or 3, but I think his potential is so good, too good. If you have the first 5 picks, look for DeAndre. But you never know what your league's going to do. So, but I do like him as my number 2 at the end of the season, fantasy point wise. So, Hopkins, number 2.
So I'll be the only person to not pick Hopkins at 2. I'm going Devontae Adams. In points per game last year, this dude ranked wide receiver 5. He was hurt. The team just struggled. I think I would put a bet on this. I think he'll have 150 targets and 10 touchdowns this year. He's a red zone monster when he's healthy. And who else on that team is going to make any production? 2 years ago when he was healthy, the team still didn't have any wide receivers. He had 169 targets, 111 receptions, almost 1,400 yards and 13 touchdowns. So I would almost guarantee this dude's going to have 150 targets and 10 touchdowns this year.
So do you take him with your – say you have
first round pick?
4 or 5? 4 or 5?
No, I'm running back still.
Okay.
Late first round, I'll take him.
I'm not 9 through 12. You're taking him.
Yeah, 9. 9's probably my earliest spot.
Okay, fair, understandable. You're absolutely bananas though for the fact that you put DeAndre Hopkins at 5? Yeah, 5. You're out of your mind. Yeah. DeAndre Hopkins is the reason the Arizona Cardinals are going 10-6 this season. End of point. That's all I'm going to say.
Mate, I forgot about
DeAndre Hopkins is the reason they are 10-6 this season. That's it. Boom. Let's go on to number 1.
We all got the same guy.
Yeah, Michael Thomas.
We've talked about Michael Thomas. The only reason he gets these many targets, these many receptions, because Drew Brees cannot throw the ball downfield, so they're going to have that many plays.
Wait.
Oh,
You're going to talk bad about the number 1 pick?
Yeah,
You're just
absolutely.
going to go straight negative?
Yeah, negative.
You're not going to
Negative.
say how talented he is or anything. You're just going to say this.
The man catches everything.
Everything.
Who do you think is
Everything.
running this? Like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, you know
So
me.
you're going to make it a negative that he has a weak-armed quarterback?
Look, yes, I am. But
Oh my god.
I mean, the dude, like, listen to this. He had 185 targets last year. The next,
That's because he's good.
Yeah, because he catches. What did he catch? 140, 149 of those?
yep. I'll tell you why. Because they had 100 extra possessions on offense because they were not throwing the ball downfield last year because Drew Brees cannot throw the ball downfield.
That's perfect for fantasy.
Because
Absolutely.
he manages the game correctly. They made it. They were a playoff team.
In no way am I like demeaning his fantasy value. That's why I have him number 1 overall. But I mean, look, 1,725 yards last year. That's 400 more than the next best receiver in fantasy. That's 40 fucking points. 9 touchdowns. He averaged 23.4 points a game. You could not ask more than the best receiver. Like, that's probably not going to happen ever again. Like that.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous how much he had. So last year he did play all 16 games. So I'll give him that. The next best receiver fantasy point wise overall to the 2019 season, 276.1. And Michael Thomas had 374.6. Like,
Almost 100 points. Yeah.
bro, this dude,
98-point difference is insane.
it's almost in the conversation like, where do you take Michael Thomas before Christian McCaffrey? Almost.
Yeah, that was my big point. It's not
Yeah.
is Michael Thomas the number 1 wide receiver? It's what running back is he better than?
Yeah.
So it's just that is the big question. Is he second? Is he third? Is he fourth? Is he fifth? Like that's the point that it has to be talked about for Michael Thomas is when do you draft him? And I think that's what's going to win and lose people leagues.
Well, I think if you have a top 3 pick, Christian McCaffrey goes first. I think in a lot of leagues. I think Saquon is a name that people will take for the second or third.
For a reason.
I think, yeah. And Kamara probably goes top 5. I think he does. I think he does in a lot of leagues.
See, that's the break for me. So
Yeah.
for me, it's McCaffrey, Saquon, Elliott. They're in their own tier. And then it's Michael Thomas. There's no other running back besides. So 4th pick, Michael Thomas. Top 3 running back.
Yeah, Kamara proved last year that he could be replaced by Latavius Murray. So,
I mean, I agree totally.
Yeah.
But I'm just
I
saying,
think
like,
he's 4th. I think that's the big question is he's the 4th.
but it happened last year, man. Like I don't know the stats of the 2018 season, but it happened. Like Michael Thomas was the guy in New Orleans, but people still took Saquon, Kamara, and Christian.
Because running backs are so much more important than wide receivers. We talked about it. Wide receivers are so deep.
They are.
You have to have a running back. You have to. If you take wide receiver round 1 and 2, it's so tough to recover and get running backs. It's so tough.
I know when it comes to Michael Thomas though, and those targets though, boy. Like,
so you think he's in a discussion for number 2 overall pick?
I don't know.
It's
I
okay.
hope he has.
For me-
I hope he has number 2 or 3.
For me,
just to stress him out. Just to stress him out.
For me, no.
Just to hear about it for once.
We know you hate Saquon, so we know it's Christian McCaffrey. And
Well,
I would be surprised.
I hate Michael Thomas too. Then if you know I hate Saquon, so
no, fantasy wise, you hate Saquon fantasy wise. You hate Michael Thomas as a person.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so yeah, top 3. I don't know if I take Michael Thomas. It's tough. I think 4. I think 4 is a really good number. But then you got to shape your team from there down.
You really got to adjust your team.
You really got to go after a running back.
Running back.
Absolutely. Well, all right. This has been our top 10 wide receiver fantasy rankings for PPR format. I hope you guys enjoyed. And, we'll be back with – what you guys want to do next? Quarterbacks?
Quarterbacks.
Let's go.
Top 20.
All right, we're doing top 20 quarterbacks next. So stay tuned, and we'll be here soon. Bye.